Hey folks, so we got about 3.5 hours of hands-on time with Resident Evil Requiem. Capcom did not allow us to capture our own gameplay. Instead, they provided 15 minutes that you're watching here and just following the rules, but we're not able to post the gameplay in full. So here I am to commentate over it and give some extra detail. So I just want to note right here, I didn't know what the zombie was saying until I actually played it and saw it with subtitles, and he's saying, "Cut out," which is great. Also, Leon just watches this poor nurse die, and I mean, he doesn't really do anything about it. I guess, you know, once a chainsaw goes through the torso of a woman, there's not really much you can do for her. Anyways, so for those of you who've seen previous trailers or gameplay overviews, there's a shot of Leon Kennedy coming out of his Porsche, entering the Rhodes Hill Chronic Care Center. That is what happens directly before this scene. So this entire part here is one of my favorite encounters of the demo, where Leon is taking on zombies, but specifically a zombie with a chainsaw. The thing that this capture does not show, which bums me out so much, that if you shoot the chainsaw out of that zombie's hands, it will twirl around on the floor, which becomes a hazard for both Leon and other zombies. The moment it slows down, though, it kind of becomes this race for Leon or to basically get to the chainsaw before zombies do, because other zombies can pick it up. The other thing this capture doesn't show is just how comical the comical situations that happen from using a chainsaw. In particular, there are zombies who can get the chainsaw stuck in them, and they will wander off with it going off in their chest, and they can even get stuck in walls. There was even one occurrence where I shot the feet out of a zombie holding it, and when it fell to the ground, the chainsaw began dragging it across the floor, in of itself becoming another hazard to hurt Leon. So while the chainsaw is absolutely 100% totally OP, there is a lot of risk reward in using it, and it just leads to hysterical, chaotic mayhem. The other thing that this capture doesn't show is that in order to actually leave this room, you have to use the chainsaw to get through a barred door, and in the process destroys the chainsaw, which is nice because it adds to the level progression, but it also just kind of, you know, comes up with a gamey excuse for why Leon can't just be wandering around with a chainsaw. All right, so in this section, this is the first time Grace and Leon meet face to face. And if you've watched previous coverage, including the last preview we did on the Grace preview, I think I want to say back at Summer Game Fest, June last year, that was the sort of stealthy section of Grace kind of hiding from that big-eyed woman that we just saw. If the full game kind of plays out the way the preview does, Leon's section ties directly where that part leaves off. The thing that's unclear is what's kind of happening in between that section. I don't know how soon Leon will go and meet Grace, and I don't know if what the gap in pacing will look like, but again, we'll find out. I also just find this genuinely very funny that in this part, Leon gives Grace the biggest gun he has, which is the Requiem. For those of you who don't know, the gun is actually called Requiem. This giant magnum gun is called Requiem. And the director, Nakanishi, has made some comments that this gun somehow has some thematic tie-in to what they want to accomplish with this game. There it is. Hey, Grace. Here's the biggest gun in the world. You'll do fine. Music's great in this part, though, by the way. So when we come into Grace in this section, this is actually the first time you even have a gun as Grace. So as mentioned in the previous preview, she was unarmed, and she had just woken up from being kidnapped. And the only thing you could kind of use in that section, aside from a lighter, is glass bottles to distract the big-eyed, beautiful lady chasing you around. So I find it kind of an interesting design choice before basically Grace is unarmed and then is armed with probably the most powerful weapon she will get in her game. And then it's not until later she finds a small pistol that is much more in line with Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 7 style gameplay. And of course, this is classic Resident Evil design. She encounters a locked door before the key. And in fact, during my playthrough, if I remember right, I don't think you ever get the key to open that door. So they're keeping some secrets from me. Now, what you didn't see in this section, what they cut out of this gameplay capture between Grace getting the gun and this part is that the main kind of hallway of the Rhodes Hill Chronic Care Center is very reminiscent of Resident Evil 1, the Resident Evil 1 mansion, and even the Resident Evil 2 police, the Raccoon City Police Department lobby, which is like this big open space with two sides opening on each side. In this particular thing, this is what happens when you go to the left side of that facility, and you eventually will end up on the other side as well. Now, here's a really great part. What's interesting is when I played this, I snuck past him. You can completely bypass ever having to deal with this big hulking brute of a zombie. Also, her wasting that, like, that gun is usually a one-shot kill, and the fact that the hulking zombie didn't die in that one hit is kind of shows how tough that dude is. But if you use that thing on lowly zombies, like if you were to have used it on this cleaner, she would have been gone in one shot. Anyways, but in my playthrough, I snuck past the cook and never actually had to deal with him until much, much later. The thing that I think is really cool, the implications of that is even if you choose not to kill a zombie and sneak past it as Grace, there is a very strong chance that zombie will not be in the same section as last time when you come back through those halls, but will in fact be wandering around elsewhere doing other things, which I think is quite inspiring for potential New Game Plus runs where you can kind of get an idea of the routine of zombies and maybe even play that play it to your advantage and knowing that, oh, if I don't kill this zombie, it won't be in this area later, but it'll be in this area later, which I think is really interesting. Now, if you're not familiar, zombies talk in this game because they have lingering pieces of their personality. And this, each zombie kind of has like its own distinct characteristic. Every zombie I met in this section had something specific or bespoke to them. Some of them are more subtle, like the weapons they carry, because the weapons they carry are contextual to the situation they're in. So I think if I remember right, there's a zombie right here who crawls out from underneath the table. He's got, I think, like a bottle in his hand because clearly he was partying. And then there's another zombie. Oh, he doesn't even have an arm. Never mind. Shows what my memory remembers. But, oh no, he's got a knife. That's it. So he's got a knife in the other hand. But later, right here in this scene, you'll see that one of the zombies is carrying a glass bottle with him because clearly they were having a good time that night until they were churned. So speaking of Nakanishi-san, the director of the game, he told me that zombies' personality traits linger because they were just freshly succumbed to the viral infection. So there's parts of them that are still there, which is why they talk. This singing, dancing zombie that you see kind of, oh, she's so creepy. If you can actually find notes on some of the patients in the Rhodes Hill Chronic Care Center, and there's a specific note that you can find about her that says that she's basically diagnosed with main character syndrome. Like she's very attention needy. She thinks she's the most important person in the room. So when she sees you, she screams to basically get all the attention on her, but in the process alerting all the zombies to you. Also, on that piano, you could actually, if you were to have stealth through this section, you could have actually pressed the piano notes to distract the zombies to that section and then sneak right by them. So there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of variation. There's a lot of player choice and how you want to deal with any given sort of any given encounter, which is a really fresh and interesting take on the series. I compare this section to Resident Evil 2 Remake more than Resident Evil 7. I've seen a lot of people compare it to Resident Evil 7, maybe with the most obvious thing being that it's in first person. But just remember, you can change it to third person, and it probably has a totally different vibe. But even still, I think this is much more in line with Resident Evil 2 because of the way the enemies behave. In Resident Evil 2, there was a lot of... The zombies had an improbability to them because the way they moved, the way they interacted with the environment, and you can shoot one, leave it, and then come back later and have to deal with it, and that's kind of what this one is doing. Also, these zombies are like having a nice little conversation at the top of the stairs, I love. If you had taken the time to actually, in this part, you can hear them kind of like murmur some semblance of words. Like these two were like good work buddies in the past. Also, an important note, the knife that Grace used in that section. That is also Resident Evil 2, even Resident Evil 4 sort of mentality design, where you find kitchen knives that are very, very durable, that are kind of like you can use for when you get grabbed. Also, this part is fantastic. I can't believe they spoiled this, but so it goes. Now, this is one of the most interesting change-ups, I think, in the series. Resident Evil 2 had Mr. X. Resident Evil 7 had the Baker family. And then obviously Village had Lady Dimitrescu and the baby in the House of Beneviento. And yeah, I guess you can talk about Nemesis in 3, but Nemesis is still a little bit too scripted in my book to kind of fit in the thing that I'm kind of talking about, which is this sort of the way these things stalk you and kind of improvise through the environment. I think they're going they're dialing in on this big thing chasing you sort of thing, and more so in other games. Almost, I'm willing to speculate that there's going to be sections where you're going to have multiple of those things, kind of behaving differently and following you environments. So that syringe, that purple syringe, is similar to the Requiem gun. It's kind of like your one-shot kill, your last-ditch effort, something you should not use on a zombie like they just did. It's too valuable of a resource. And you may even be able to take out the big guy with one of those. Who's to say? So now we're back to Leon. There is a section that was not shown here that involves a little more context to what's going on with Leon that I don't want to spoil. Capcom also kind of didn't want us to spoil it either, so I won't get too into it. But this is kind of the emblematic moment of showing the juxtaposition between Grace's playstyle and Leon's. In the case of Grace, you are terrified of this thing. You want to run away from it. There's no way you could possibly think you can really take it on reasonably. But then there's this immediate catharsis sort of 180 flip that you take control of Leon, and that is the first thing you fight, and Leon slaughters the thing. Not very easily, obviously, but the juxtaposition of how Leon handles the situation versus Grace, who is, a data analyst, FBI agent, certainly not trained to take on such a big, wonderful, hungry boy. Also, I love this bit when you go up, and I'll just let it play out. Can't get up there, buddy. Whoa! There's something so cartoonish and silly about it. I think it's great. A note on the hatchet. So the hatchet is Leon's knife in this game. It can parry things the same way as well as chainsaws. Its durability is interesting because from what I noticed, there is no inventory. There's no discernible item in the inventory that matches the sharpening block that Leon can use to sharpen the hatchet, which makes me wonder that you can basically just keep sharpening that thing. I don't know what the implication of that is in terms of balancing it, and hopefully trying to make it not as OP as it comes off, but time will tell. Another detail is that it can be upgraded, which you'll see later in Leon Kennedy's attaché case. Something cool is you get to go through the exact same environments Grace had just gone through, but as Leon. Now in this, they obviously showed Grace taking those zombies on and killing one of them. In my playthrough, I didn't kill those zombies. I just snuck right past them. So when I came through this as Leon, I was basically kind of like cleaning up Grace's mess. These cabinets are also scattered all around Grace's, the levels as Grace, and there's no way of opening them, but they are obviously there specifically for Leon to open, which kind of leaves some more interesting questions about the design. Are you going to go through a space as Leon and get to open those and maybe deliberately leave items there so that Grace can pick them up later? I don't know, but that's some of the sort of interesting sort of back and forth that I'm hope this game is leading into, but we'll find out when the game comes out next month. But yeah, this is showing off Leon's attaché case, just like it was in Resident Evil 4 and also Resident Evil Village. So yeah, anyways, Thank you so much. I hope that was some new information for you. I hope that was some insight into my specific playthrough and how that differed from the gameplay that Capcom provided to us. Again, we are going to be doing a ton of Resident Evil Requiem coverage. I'm a very big fan of the series, and I'm very dedicated to trying to learn as much as I can and share as much as I can. So thank you so much for watching. Make sure to check out my hands-on preview, which goes over some of what I just talked about, but gets a little bit more into specifics and speculations and stuff that I didn't quite cover on this. Stay cool, everybody. See you later.